Welcome to my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Indiana Jones 5 on 4K Blu-ray. Warning, there's tobacco depictions in here. I was showing that to my wife. It's like there's also a lot of murders and violence too, but let's put a warning about the tobacco depictions. My goodness, we're so backwards. Before I do my absolute deep dive into what I thought of this movie, love it, hate it, good, bad, and ugly, I'm going to interject a scene here of me. So I watched the movie a couple days ago, and I've been thinking about it since then. I really needed to think. I just barely finished the full special features and watched the Blu-ray to compare to the 4K. But first, we're going to show you my reaction, my initial reaction. So you're going to see me like the wheels just turning in my head, how I'm trying to process my initial reaction. So that's about 5 minutes, and that's going to be coming up next. And then after that, we're going to go through line by line and talk about stuff I love and stuff I hate in this movie. And this bad boy is not going anywhere. Good evening. I just watched Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on 4K, and I am processing this unnecessary movie. This was an unnecessary movie that had quite a few enjoyable Indiana Jones stuff in it, and then it also had a very annoying sidekick, and the action was a little bit tedious, and there was tons of CG, not all of which held up, and a lot of people say that they like this one better than the Crystal Skull. Nope, I disagree with that. My order of Indiana Jones movies is Raiders, Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Crystal Skull, this. At first, from all the stuff I heard on the internet, or the echo chamber that I'm in on the internet, I decided I wasn't going to watch this movie. I wasn't going to support this movie. But ultimately, my curiosity got the best of me, and also John over in the UK at Movie Collector. His review was outstanding and really convinced me I should give it a shot. Also, James at In Search of Physical Media, his review also made me feel like I should give it a shot. So I appreciate both of those guys' reviews, convincing me to give this a whirl. It was not as horrible as I was thinking, but I don't want to say it's completely soulless, because it has some absolutely touching Indiana Jones moments, but they're few. Kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean 5, which I think Pirates 5 is worth it for the very, very, very end scene. And I think this movie is also worth it for the very, very, very end. But this movie feels very unnecessary, very extra, very tacked on. I think Crystal Skull, so Last Crusade, riding off into the sunset, that's the perfect ending. Crystal Skull, him coming back and being an old superpower guy, I kind of like that. The fridge nuking is kind of hard to get over. But then again, he jumped out of an airplane in a raft in Temple of Doom. So there's stuff like that in each of the movies. But I think I liked Crystal Skull quite a bit more than this one. It felt a lot more like an Indiana Jones. It was more enjoyable to watch. And it felt, even though there's a ton of CG in that movie, I feel like there was more like real stuff happening on screen. In this movie, I feel like almost everything, every scene, every locale, like just so much green screen and CG backgrounds and CG this and that. And it kind of took a lot of the joy out of it. Now, my wife took some pictures of me during the tuk-tuk, is that what those little cars are called, during that chase scene, and I'm going to share those with you, and to show you how I was feeling during that scene. Also, I took a whole bunch of notes. I want to go through this line by line and talk about this, but I think I need to sleep on this movie, honestly, and I'm kind of curious about the special features. I heard those are really good too. But this was just my initial feelings about this movie, is that it's unnecessary and has some really good moments. And just a heads up, I'm going to go full spoilers from here on out. As far as the 4K goes, it looked outstanding, and it sounded great too. I did have to turn the volume up a little louder than I normally do. And John from Movie Collector in his review said that there were some skipping frames in the parade horse chase part. If he's talking about the part where Indiana Jones turns around on the horse and very quickly changes directions, there could be a few frames missing there. We'll look a little closer when we get there. But I absolutely felt like Harrison Ford played Indiana Jones. He played an older Indiana Jones. Like, it felt like Indiana Jones is in his soul, and that he was absolutely playing a believable old Indiana Jones. And I really liked everything with Marion, which wasn't much, but what was there was very powerful and touching. And I think a lot of people hate the ending in with Archimedes. I thought that part was awesome. That's maybe one of the coolest parts. So anyway, let's go through this. I really have to sleep on it, but I think this is the bottom of the barrel for me for Indiana Jones movies. All right, welcome back. If you survived me having like a life event trying to figure out what I thought of this movie. But here we are at the opening scene where we get to see the first video game face of Indiana Jones that they showed in the trailer that blew people's minds. And before we take the bag off his head, I think some of it looked really, really good and very natural. Others looked absolutely terrible, and like the face wasn't matching the movement of the body. And then it did look very video gamey. So overall, okay, kind of deep fake. I know it's not technically a deep fake, but I think it's okay. The de-aging is okay. A few shots are awful, and I'm going to show you like a weird glitchy shot here in a second. But many of the shots look good. Overall, I would say it's, I don't know, like 75% convincing. Here we go. Check it out. Look at that. Young Indiana Jones. What do you know it? Okay, listen to his voice.
Spy. You were alone? I like to be alone.
Oof.
You got a lot of nice stuff.
All right. Okay, his old Harrison Ford voice really crushes. It really, I mean, look at that. See, freeze frame. It looks pretty good. His cheeks are a little stiff, but it looks pretty good. But his voice in that first shot of him is so old and grumbly. And that really had me worrying. And then as this, it's like a 20-minute scene that's like a flashback. As it plays out, there's multiple instances of his voice, more when he's like straining it more, that he totally sounds like his young Harrison Ford voice. But there's a few shots, or I guess clips of the audio, where it just sounds like super old grumbly guy. So I wish they would have like tried to get a more younger sounding like opening line when the bag comes off, because it instantly separated the reality for me. And yeah, I brought this thing. Quick note on the difference between the 4K and the Blu-ray. First of all, they both look outstanding. But compared the 4K to the Blu-ray, and this is just from my eyes, this isn't like technical expert here. You can go to James if you want to see that, or John. But just from my eyes, the 4K is a deep, beautiful, dimensional picture, a lot darker, but there's so much more nuance in the color. The Blu-ray looks really, really good, but it's just it's too bright. It's too much. It's almost like, it's not quite overblown because there's no like colors bleeding or anything, but the 4K is a much, much nicer, much easier to watch picture. Again, a little darker. Like every single scene is a little darker, but it just looks so much better. So that's my quick comparison on the two. Okay, so speaking of young Harrison Ford, which looks good and not good on some parts, this right here, I saw this my first time through. This part happened and I was like, what in the world? So if you look at the timestamp here, right almost at 5 minutes, and it's when he's just done his like crazy swinging by the noose thing. By the way, the face seems like it's having a hard time staying on the body at that portion. You'd think with how long this movie is delayed, they could have matched that a little better. Anyway, look at his, let's see, it'd be his left eye on this part when, let's see, yeah, his left eye. So when he pulls the noose off his head and he looks down, like his left eye goes really weird looking. Just look at this. Okay, I'll just play it at normal speed and see if you can catch it. Great John Williams. And yes, this is totally nitpicky. This is going to be full of things like this. I'm a lifelong Indiana Jones fan. I wouldn't say expert. I'd say I do know a lot of stuff about the movies, but longtime fan. This is just something that really, really took me out of it. So we're going to go slow motion here and just look at his left eye. So there's obviously motion blur, and that's not what I'm talking about. It's once he stops and looks down. See right there, his eye looks fine. But then watch this. What in the world? Look at that. He's like the Hey You Guys guy from Goonies. Look at that. It's like there's no more of the white of his eye anymore. What in the world? That is so weird. So it's very short. So obviously every CG thing can't be perfect, but just when I first saw that, I was like, what is with this eye? So now I get to share it with you. You're welcome. I will say this movie, in many instances, has a startling attention to detail. There's so many tiny things to notice, and right here's one of them. Look at they're digging through Indy's effects. Right here is a picture of Marion. Check it out. Look at that. What a nice little touch. I'm happy to hear the Wilhelm scream included in this movie. A little lower pitched. Look at him running on top of here. So fake. Oh, there's parts of this movie, especially this opening scene, where I feel like I'm watching the Polar Express, and not because it's on a train, but because of the faces and just how super stiff and fake some of the CG looks. This part where the anti-air gun gets kind of turned around and goes on auto and just destroys the train, it just felt like a video game. Like this whole scene, as it just starts shooting the side of the train here, getting all the baddies. It's just there's actually quite a bit of this movie that feels like a video game. Now, I was very happy to see the belt of ammo running short here, because it was just like, is this the eternal anti-air gun? And you can see it getting fed in there and running out eventually. Hey, here's another freeze frame of the de-aged Indy. When it's frozen, it looks pretty good when he's not moving. So quick note, a lot of people have talked about this. So one, the John Williams music score is incredible throughout this. Now, one thing that it's very, very heavy on, the score, is constant little hints at various parts of the rest of the original trilogy of movies. They take themes from similar scenes and put it in a scene that's similar here. So just quick note on the soundtrack. It's incredible, and it is very much full of callbacks to the other movies. And another note on the sound. So, and a lot of people have mentioned this, the sound in here is perfect Indiana Jones sound. The big punches, the loud gunshots, the whip noise, the Wilhelm scream, just the sound is very different from many movies nowadays. All right, so the flashback scene is pretty much over.
Go home empty-handed after all that.
Okay, watch Indy's mouth.
Exactly.
What in the world? Then watch his head as it moves. What in the world?
Come on, Baz.
Okay, right there. Come on, Baz. That sounded like young Indy, but just the CG on there is a little iffy. And I just think it's funny that you have to have the British flag up there on the train to show that all the people up there are the good guys, and that it's okay that they're being seen down here. So if this de-aging was for a video game, it would be incredible. Like, it would be the best ever. But the problem is it's for a movie, and he's next to other humans. And so my wife was pointing out that his cheeks seem a little stiffer than what a real person's would. Now, I want to give my overall thoughts on this opening scene, because it's like its own movie. It's completely isolated from everything else. It's a flashback into World War II, and then we go to 1969. So it's like its own separate movie. And James Mangold in the special features actually talked about how he felt like he was making multiple different movies because of all the different like set pieces and locations they go to. So I know that I was nitpicky for it. But overall, the opening scene for just like the whole of Indiana Jones, I thought it was great. I really liked it. I would say it's awesome. It's just there's a few parts where his eye looks weird, his face doesn't quite look attached. But overall, it looks great. Now, I'll talk about this more when I get into the special features, but if there's so much practical that they filmed on camera for all the different scenes throughout this movie, there's quite a bit that's practical in camera, then why, when I'm watching it, does it feel so fake and so shiny CG? I think that's because, in addition to the stuff that they filmed practically, they stuck a whole bunch of CG in there, CG background, CG this, CG that. And so, unfortunately, it cheapens the real footage that they actually captured, in my opinion. So I think I just answered my own question. But if you know why, because there's so much amazing footage captured on camera, like the special feature said. But throughout the entire movie, I'm like, man, this is a lot of CG. It looks super fake. So I don't know. What do you think on that? Yeah, overall, opening scene, very cool action scene. So now we come back to Indiana Jones's present, 1969, and he's startled awake by the Beatles, which honestly, I wouldn't mind that. I love the Beatles. But look at his body, and we'll talk about the fourth movie here in a second. Look at this. Look at him. So they're giving you a full body shot of this dude. So he is old, as we know. And just compare this shot to in the fourth movie, after the terrible nuking scene, when he's getting decontaminated and they're like scrubbing him. You get to see his front and his back, shirt off. Like, he is a beefy, muscly, defined guy in that scene, and like that's really him. And so to go from that to this, I mean, he's still, I mean, he looks fit, right? But he looks old. And the movie does not shy away from how old he is. And some people are like, oh, it's not necessary, he's too old. And it's like, no, I don't know if like he's too old. It's like, do we need to visit him again as a character? I don't know. Like I said, there's some moments in here I absolutely love. And then there's some stuff that bugs me. But I did want to point out, compare his body shot right here to his body shot in the fourth movie. He's huge and defined in that thing. Look at this. So I like that they don't try to hide it, or they don't try and beef up his body. Like, he's very much playing someone this age, and he does it so well. And I feel like I said this already earlier, but he plays the character of Indiana Jones amazing in this movie. Like, it truly feels like it's the same guy. Now he's beaten down and he's not happy, but it feels like a real progression for him from the events I disagree with. By the way, look, I will fully admit this. I liked Shia LaBeouf in the fourth one, and I wished he was in this one. When they announced it, I was like, yes, and then he's totally not going to be in it. And I was super bummed. I really wanted him to be in it. I'm in the minority there, but I'm just telling you the truth. And so I really didn't like that they had him die. And I'll just talk about this right now. In The Force Awakens, you have Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher playing an old couple that's separated because something happened to their kid. And so here again, you have Harrison Ford and Marion playing an old couple who separated because something happened to their kid. So I know that doesn't have anything to do with this movie, but the problem is I have a meta brain. So while I'm watching this movie, I'm like, oh, Harrison Ford, old hero character, broken up with his lady friend because something happened to their son. Now, in here, his son died in Vietnam. He didn't turn to the dark side, but it's still just like, this is feeling really similar here, Lucasfilm. Hello, here I am another day later, having pondered on this movie for many days. Let's continue our way through it, shall we? Okay. The movie does not treat you like a baby, which I always appreciate in any movie. And Dr. Jones is getting himself a fresh cup of joe in the morning, and he looks down at the table and gets like a look on his face, and this is what's down there. So, a separation agreement from Marion Ravenwood, petitioner, and Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr., respondent. It is an uncontested separation because there's no children under 18, and it is a June 1969 thing. So, this is pretty recent, and It's Marion and himself. Also, did you know his middle name was Walton? What? I have never known that before, and I love that I paused it right there because that's so cool. Anyway, this is one of the parts of the movie that I had like heard about before in the like angry echo chamber that I'm in on the internet, that honestly made me not want to watch it. Truthfully, I was like, oh, I just got married in the last movie. Are you really gonna have this? But I will say, so I didn't like that. I really liked Marion going on the adventure or being on part of the adventure in the last movie. But so even though this is a plot point I don't like, they played it very well, and it really lends to where his character's at, which is he's very sad and cranky. And then he's going to do something to this magnet on the fridge, which is going to lead to my favorite part possibly of the whole movie. So there he goes. Ooh. All right, so remember that magnet that he puts over her face because it's going to lead to my favorite part of the whole movie. One of them. Okay, so here he is in class. All the little students look just bored out of their minds. They don't care. The subject he's teaching is irrelevant. It's definitely like an opposite of the other Indiana Jones movies where the people are just in love with him, just like falling over themselves. You know, there's the classic girl with the I love you written on her eyelids, and these kids could not care less. And this part is interesting. You don't realize it until the end of the movie.
In 213
but
BC,
what he's talking about right here.
Roman forces led by Marcellus laid siege to the city of Syracuse.
Here you go, right here.
A way to harness the energy of the Mediterranean sun on concave mirrors and focus it on attacking Roman warships.
All right, and set them on fire. But he's passionate about history, and here he is talking about Archimedes and these cool inventions that can burn down boats by reflecting the sun. And I didn't realize it, but we'll get to it when we get to that part in the movie. And I'm going to show you something awesome. Maybe everyone else noticed it, but I didn't notice it because there's so much else to look at. But remember those things too. So I actually like this part. He gives his retirement gift to this guy on the street. I feel like that's very Indiana Jones. He just does not care about the stupid trinket they gave him for retirement. So his goddaughter, Helena Shaw, finally catches up to him in this bar, and he doesn't recognize her. And this is just this little interaction when Indiana Jones recognizes her is one of the many examples of Harrison Ford's acting in this movie being just really, really good. Like, look at his sincere reaction when he realizes who it is.
Sure.
Not bad.
Wow, I haven't had that in a while.
Look at that.
You got tall.
I did.
Look at that.
Fair to say.
This is genuine. It's completely believable and genuine. And just something about that, like, every time she's on screen, I'm just like, oh, the internet says she's terrible in this movie. The internet says she's disrespectful to him the entire time. The internet says that maybe Disney was thinking of replacing him with her. So every time she was on screen, I almost had like this programmed response to be like on guard. Now, I would say that's about 50% validated because while any instance of her personality isn't like movie-breakingly awful, it's the sum of her entire personality from beginning to end. And she and him actually have a couple very sweet moments, but there's like a grading effect of her. She's like such a scoundrel, scallywag, manonizer, like mercenary. She's like amazing at fighting and punching dudes out with their simultaneously skinny and flappy arms at the same time. And she does insult him quite a few times, but as the special features point out, like, it is back and forth. So there's rumors that like they took out a lot of her insults towards him. So her performance really was not as bad as I was led to believe. However, I would say she is by far the worst part of the movie. So now they're reminiscing in the bar.
He was an original.
I just graduated in archaeology.
Archaeology. What?
All right, So she graduated, she's working on her doctorate. So she clearly is good at this stuff. She tells him she's focusing on Archimedes' dial, right? That becomes the MacGuffin of the whole movie. And I've really been thinking a lot about her character and why she bothered me so much. And it's not how smart she is, because I think it's very plausible that she's exactly as smart as she is. It's just some of these movies get annoying when they elevate a character to just be so smart and so flawless. But with her, I think her smarts are believable. Like she just graduated. She's working on her doctorate. Like she's an archaeologist. She's like younger. You know, she really is like a younger version of him. It's just there's a lot of fight scenes where she's just one punching dudes out, and you know, like well, I guess we'll look at it later in here, but like she rips her sleeves off at one point, and she just doesn't look physically capable. Like she's like skinny and flappy at the same time. I'll show you, but her physicality in this movie is not believable.
Wombat,
I love that he calls her Wombat, by the way.
why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy?
Why are you chasing the thing that drove your father crazy? So the last movie just had Marion Ravenwood's father that was driven crazy by the Crystal Skull cults. The Crystal Skull stuff. Are we just gonna do that on repeat? We're gonna have someone whose father was driven crazy by a thing? I don't know. I guess it's not exactly the same. But I'm nitpicking this a little bit. This part made my blood boil.
Sorry.
Watching this. Her trapping him in there. It's like, you could let him out.
What do you want?
But I guess she's got her little mission. And honestly, this scene was probably supposed to make your blood boil, but that part made me so mad. I was just like, oh, good grief. Here we go. All right, this is cool. Followed by a not cool thing. But check this out. This is another Harrison Ford movie with a parade playing this song. Just from like The Fugitive, from that the parade chase scene. Check out some of these computer-generated extras in the background on this part. All right, this might be a example of what I'm talking about, where I just feel like, yes, they captured some great footage, but there just seems to be so much CG just bled into everything. And I don't know if it's because they're making this movie during COVID and they just couldn't have crowds of people, because there's crowds of people at other points in this movie. But check this out right here. We're gonna go on a journey into this crowd. So the first thing I noticed was this lady right here. Right here. She was just like stuck, just like doing this weird wave thing, and she wasn't stopping. And I was like, oh, that's odd. And then so I rewound it over and over and was like watching her. And then I noticed there's another one of her. So there's her right here doing this weird wave thing. And then there's another one of her right here doing the exact same weird wave thing. And then look at this lady here. You got the afro with the yellow shirt. And then you have her again right here and right here. And they just look so fake, and they're moving so weird to the point where like I'm almost like it just feels like a video game, right? And I swear, like some of this feels like AI made it, and so I'm expecting some of these people just to randomly have like 3 legs or something. But check these characters out in motion. Okay, here we go, bottom corner. Check it out. To the 2 ladies. They're exactly the same. I'll point them out again. Okay, here we go. Check it out. So I'm doing slow motion. So right here, you got this lady doing her weird wave thing, and this lady. Same dress, same weird arm wave. Anyway, you can see that there's a couple real people, but there's a lot of really fake looking backgrounds. And I know like Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace famously used painted Q-tips to fill out the crowd. You know, there's always matte paintings filling things out. But like this movie, there's a lot of that, and it's everywhere. And a lot of times like people's heads don't look like they're in the right spot. So I don't know if it's because they CG'd them onto like a background that's not really there or whatever, but there's just a lot of oddly unnatural looking things in this movie. All right, look at this weird thing that Indiana Jones says. It's almost like a bad TV dub. Like, what is he saying right here? So the audio says hunk of gears, But like, what did he actually say? Because look at his mouth. It does not say it. I'm going to turn the volume up too. Although, also notice that when he does say it, it's like a different, like it's clearly recorded at a different time. Okay, check it out. Listen to this.
My daughter. I haven't seen her in 18 years.
Why did you meet with her today? To give her the dial?
Lady, it's an ancient hunk of gears. Half a hunk.
What in the world?
A lot more than
What was that? What was that? An ancient hunk of grars. What in the world? Like one thing like that in the movie is like fine, but it just feels like throughout the entire movie, there's just these randomly like unnecessary, super weird or fake or manipulated things. Does anyone else notice this? Am I crazy? Am I taking crazy pills here? All right, I know I've already said the John Williams score for this movie is incredible, but during this like horse and foot and motorcycle chase, there's like this really low piano music playing. It almost reminds me of the Red Dawn when the helicopters come to attack the kids after they've got the food that the Russians left in the road. It's like similar music, and I love the chase music here. I actually look forward to listening to the score only track of this. I don't know if you can hear it in the background. So you just have this low thing, and then there kind of some brass comes in, and it almost feels a little bit Matrixy. I like this just like simple cameo of the Apollo astronauts right here, and Indiana Jones checks him out as he rides by. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool homage to the Apollo astronauts. So another thing with the chase scenes in this movie, like there's like some longer shots of the motorcycles or cars or horses or whatever that look pretty good, but then they just cut into the actors and it's just totally green screen. Like without a doubt, it's green screen. And you think back to the other Indiana Jones movies, and it's like even just the fourth one where the motorcycle chase scene, like that scene was amazing in that one, even like in the town that ends up driving through the university. This here, I'm watching it and like my disbelief keeps getting like broken with these like fake green screen shots. So I can't just like stay invested in these chases throughout because there'll be really cool actual stuff filmed, and then suddenly there's just a really fake CG looking thing that just has really weird, not realistic movement. Like look at his head here. I wonder if this is the part John's talking about. Okay, so I'm wondering, John, if you're watching this, you said that in your review, John at Movie Collector, he said that there's some skipping frames during this scene. I wonder, is this one of the parts that you mentioned? When he turns, I know the horse jerks him really fast, but like and look at his head is like in the wrong place. This looks so weird. Look at that. I don't think I don't know. Okay, watch. So I'll do it in slow motion to just watch how quickly he turns here. So I don't know. Maybe that's not slow-mo. Maybe that's not a missing frame, but just again, am I the only one noticing this movie full of these weird little things? Again, it's like looking at an AI piece of art where you're like, ooh, that looks nice, but then things are just off. Like people will have extra fingers or extra legs, or I don't know if you've ever looked at AI generated artwork, but sometimes this movie feels like that. I'm not accusing it of being that way. It just gives me the same feeling, like where it's like a little unsettling because it's off. All right, a couple things about this scene. The Blu-ray and the 4K looks so different right here. The lighting just looks deeper on the 4K. One of his little cronies tells him to get his suit pressed because he's going to meet the president.
What's beyond space?
Of course, he keeps dropping hints about time all throughout the movie.
You might want to get that
Listen to
suit
this.
pressed, Dr. Schmidt. We leave for the airport in an hour. He's going to meet the president.
If the president objects to a few creases, perhaps you should find himself another physicist.
Can I use that?
No.
Yes.
I love that. Like just like a funny little personality quirk. Like, has this guy ever done a bad job in a movie ever? Seriously, so good. But yeah, just like he wants to use the quote about his pressed suit, and he's like, the guy's like, no, and he's just like, yes. Love it. So this is another great example of how the exposition is just very cleverly weaved throughout, and that they don't treat you stupidly. But if you listen, and I don't even think it's so faint that I don't think you can hear it, but on the TV, the guy's talking about how Dr. Jones is being accused of murder, and that his colleagues at the university said that he recently lost a son and is going through a divorce. We haven't really learned until now that he lost a son. Unless, I guess, if you're paying attention to the stuff in his apartment, there might be some hints in there. But this TV thing just straight up says it. It's like he lost a son and is going through a divorce. Yeah, there's no way you can pick it up. Sala, he's only in this for a few minutes, but it's really good to see him, and he feels very consistent. And again, surrounded by kids, just like in the first movie.
Whatever chance takes
I love this line. Listen to this.
India, I miss the desert. I miss the sea. And I miss waking up every morning wondering what wonderful adventure the new day will bring to us.
Anyway, beautiful line. Nice that he jumps in and saves Indy right at the right moment. All right, a few things. One, it's interesting to see that sometimes the Indiana Jones costume, the satchel goes under the jacket, and sometimes it goes over the jacket. This is a scene that reminds me of a video game right here. I'll explain why.
She's here.
All right, so the person he's looking for, Miss Shaw, he walks in, and then someone walks right past him, and you hear on the phone, Miss Shaw, she's here. And it's just like, the reason it feels like a video game is because in a video game, like, you walk into a room, and there's triggers that happen that just, like, deliver plot points to you. And so it just feels, this whole movie just feels like a video game. Oh, look it, Indy's foil also has a satchel wearing the strap outside the jacket. But here is an example of a line of dialogue that it was in the movie trailer, and it is so stupid and cringy. And I will share it with you now.
It's not yours. You stole it.
Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism. The bid is 1/6.
That's the first of a handful of moments that make me do that during this movie. And that line is kind of like a microcosm for her character, because by itself, honestly, it's really harmless. It's just, like I said, just her constant. And she's going to say something during the tuk-tuk car chase that is just so cringy as well. And doesn't really feel true. Here's an unconvincing elbow attack. She's so strong. All right, it's cool to hear him use his whip. It's cool to hear the exaggerated punching noises. But this is ridiculous. He ducks, and they all just keep shooting over and over straight at the wall. Come on. And you could probably point out examples of that in the other movies, but I am being nitpicky here. So he ducks, and their arms are just straight, and they're just like at the wall. It's like, did they all just close their eyes and just shoot over and over? Like, goodness. So this dude shows up in his pajamas, presumably because she bedded him the night before. I don't know. And he's got a knife or a scimitar or whatever he calls it. But look at, you can tell it's Damascus steel. See all that cool lines there? That's kind of cool. But this is where just her character is very multifaceted. I get it. She's an educated scoundrel, this, that. This guy's just like fawning over her. He's just like, oh, I thought you loved me. And she's just like so scoundrelly. And you just see her like leering at men in this movie. And I don't know if they're just trying to be like, look, see men, that's how it is in movies when you do it. But it just is so stupid in this. She just like, there's a scene later where she's just like leering at some dude in the street, and this guy's just like, oh, come back to me, I love you. It's just like, no. All right. This is the chase scene where I have the cringy faces where my wife took pictures of me while I was watching this part. I felt like if my face cringed any harder, it was going to implode. So I had an interesting feeling during this car chase, and actually during several action scenes in this movie. Something I experienced during the movie James Bond, the Spectre, where they're having a car chase in Italy, and they're just like, I think it's in Italy, and they're just like driving in a straight line really fast, and there's like no one on the road, and it's like the most boring car chase ever. I remember when I was watching Spectre, I was like, man, I'd rather be watching like the first Jack Reacher movie or like some Tom Cruise, like after number 4 Mission Impossible or something, because they're just so much more like real and enjoyable. So I'm watching this action movie and I'm just like, oh man, Tom Cruise action movies are a lot better than this. And the same thing during this chase. Again, There's really cool actual footage of the chase recorded, but it's interspliced with so much fake looking stuff that it kind of takes me out of it and makes me be like, man, I remember that car chase in the newest Mission Impossible? Like, that was really cool.
I mean, resourceful, very beautiful, self-sufficient.
Sorry, I'm just not buying it. So she just rips her sleeves off, pops out the roof of the car, rips a bar out of like the top of the car, and just like starts bashing in a window. And then she jumps over to the other car and just like starts, yeah, this is an elderly man, sure. But she just like starts like fighting this dude, wrestles a gun out of his hand. She's just not believable physically in this role. I'm so sorry. Is anybody convinced by this? See if you've seen this anywhere before.
Oh, wait. Now you believe the dial has magical powers?
I don't believe in magic, Wombat. But a few times in my life I've seen things.
Did he just do the Force Awakens line? Where he's like, it's true, all of it. Did they really just take the scene out of the Force Awakens where it's like, I used to not believe stuff, but I've seen things? It's just like, this is the same thing as old Indiana Jones, old Han Solo, talking about the things they've seen, and so the things that they believe now. Goodness gracious, Lucasfilm. She asks him what he would do if he could go back in time, where he would go, and this is one of the many, many examples of Harrison Ford's acting in this movie being absolutely phenomenal. Listen to this.
Witness the Trojan War? Check in on Cleopatra?
I stopped my son from enlisting.
Did he sign up to please you?
No, he signed up to piss me off. I told him he was gonna die.
Oh, so sad. Like, he did a really good job in this movie.
This for all the wrong reasons.
We are. Most assuredly.
You know he's...
So he's like, we're in this for all the wrong reasons, and she like looks over at these like teenagers, and she's like, just lusting after them. She's like, we are. It's like this creepy smile. It's just like, oh, she looks like the Wicked Witch from Wizard of Oz, and she's painted out to be almost like a James Bond, just like going through dudes and going after dudes and looking at dudes and lusting after dudes. Like, it gets kind of old. It gets wearing. Like I said, her character gets wearing. Good old-fashioned Indiana Jones cave crawling. I like this part.
I'm thinking. About what the hell I'm doing up here 40 feet in the air with cracked shoulders, crumbling vertebrae, a plate in one leg, screws in the other.
Yeah, I get it.
No, you don't get it. You're half my age. You haven't been forced to drink the blood of Kali.
Ah, nice reference. Anyway, he goes on and on and on, talks about all the stuff wrong with his body. But I like that he's climbing and he just like pauses. She's like, what are you thinking about? And he just like lists all the problems with his body. All this old cave crawling around stuff does feel very Indiana Jones. I like this little foreshadowing when they find Archimedes' grave. There's a wristwatch.
Clocks won't be invented for 1,000 years. Much less watches.
All right, that's kind of cool. Kind of starts setting in motion things that you're like, okay, I now expect to see the payoff of how that gets there. So this whole time, showing this plane and Indiana Jones bouncing all around in it. I just can't stop thinking about his gunshot wound. I mean, just look at how, just like plopping him down.
Yesterday belongs to us, Dr. John.
It's hard to imagine him taking that wound that initially poured out all that blood and being like alert and stable. I guess, I mean, he's been shot a lot, like in the other movies and stuff, but yeah, so I suspend disbelief and just go with it and just assume it's not a sucking chest wound or punctured lung or anything, but he definitely goes a very long time with a freaking upper chest wound. So just as every time he's like rattling around in that thing, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have a hard time thinking of anything else but his wound and how it's probably getting worse by tumbling around in the airplane. I love that Indiana Jones looks out the window and recognizes exactly what he's looking at. It's just an awesome example of Dr. Jones. Look at this. All right, I did not notice this my first time through, but look at this. Look at this. Look back here. Do you see that? That's the thing he was talking about in his class. It's all the sun, the mirrors concentrating their fire and lighting boats on fire. A lot of people criticize this third act of the movie. I think it's the best part. I absolutely love this. I think this part is amazing. Awesome. Here's another really good shot of the mirror things in action. Right there. It's so cool. Honestly, the production design of this part with Archimedes and all the sets and all the costumes is really, really cool. All the dudes running around in costumes, and then there's actually like a couple like war parts. It's pretty awesome. Watch this pilot take a ballista bolt to the body in slow motion. It's amazing. Check it out. Okay. So they're fighting over the thing. They're yelling at each other, saying, turn around. Pilots are trying to explain that the plane can't handle it. Look at what happens to this guy. Right here. Here it comes through the wall. Look when it hits him. Look at this splash. Oh gosh, so much blood. It just shoots out his back. Oh man. There's a character in one of our D&D campaigns that repeatedly gets impaled with stuff. Look at that. Tip of the ballista. That dude's done. You've been ballistaed. This part with him wanting to stay behind and die, and him meeting Archimedes and his awe at witnessing history and his absolute like reverence for meeting Archimedes is actually, it's one of probably my third favorite part of this whole movie. We'll get to my first and second, which are very close to each other, but his acting on this part again is absolutely incredible. Like, I don't want to cheapen it by saying Oscar worthy because I don't believe in the Oscars anymore, but right here, look at the pain, the tiredness,
Studied it all
passion.
my life.
Really good. Maybe the best I've ever seen Harrison Ford act, honestly. I mean, maybe I haven't been around much, but like that is beautiful. And those other parts I highlighted as well. I love this. Watching him interact with Archimedes is truly a highlight of this thing. Very beautiful. And it has the same feel as the ends of the other movies where like the supernatural thing comes true, like seeing the interdimensional beings in point of fact in the end of the fourth one, seeing the knight who's been alive guarding the Holy Grail, seeing the taking the Shankara stones, and of course the Ark. So this is like that scene in all the other movies is like the magic working, and it's really, really cool. First of all, look at that beautiful shot of that old beautiful man. So the scene that I love so much is bookended by something that I really don't like. I mean, he could have just passed out from blood loss and then drag him over to the plane. And again, this part I don't have a problem that she knocks him out because he's been like bleeding for a while. So I think a feather could knock him out at this point. And I kind of wish a feather did knock him out instead of her punching him, because I just think this is a part where the echo chamber did get me a little bit, but I do think it is disrespectful and I think it's stupid. And, you know, he should have just been all like, I want to stay, and then pass out, and then like they drag him out. So I don't like this.
Me too.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that. I know they have to get him on the plane and get him out of there and that he's determined to stay, but the punching him is just like the cherry on the annoyance cake of this femme fatale who does not feel like one. All right, showed you my third favorite. Now it's time for my second favorite part, and my most favorite part. All right, in the end, her character, I'm going to say it, she might be redeemed from the annoyance because she did go through an arc. So her arc is one that now that she cares for Indy and wants to have a relationship with him and wants the best for him. And you can see that in her face. So she was annoying throughout, but she pulls through, and you can see that she had a bit of a change, especially when she's basically begging him to not die in ancient Greece. Ancient Italy. All right, here's my second favorite part. Marion and Indiana Jones together again, interacting. It's adorable.
Indy?
They do the opposite thing where he asks where it doesn't hurt, and he kisses all those places, and it's amazingly tender and sweet. But the thing that takes the crown for my number one favorite part of this entire movie. Okay, if you might not notice it, but it's gonna be in the bottom rightish corner of the screen, and watch the fridge. So this is actually before my second favorite part where they are all hugging and kissing, and it's amazing. But
Choose away.
okay, watch when she opens the fridge.
There wasn't a scrap
Look at his hand.
in this place.
Did you see that? Here we go in slow motion. So he put that magnet over her picture at the beginning of the movie. So now that she's back, he very, very carefully, very sneakily grabs it and moves it and uncovers her picture. Look at this. There he goes. I love that. It's such a tiny detail. I wonder if people didn't even notice that. But that is my all-time favorite part of this whole movie. It's so tiny and so subtle, from how he sadly covered her picture up earlier, and then he sneaks the magnet off of her picture once she's back in there. Amazing. Best part of the movie. Whoever wrote that, absolute genius. Whoever wrote everybody shooting at the wall after he's already ducked and they continue to shoot in the same spot on the wall, bad job. And of course, it's nice to hear the same music from before, but played more epically and finally here. And so I don't like that they broke up, but seeing them get back together is very nice. It's a very sweet ending. Followed by an odd ending shot. I guess they're trying to be like, look, no one gets the hat. It's still his. This movie, I think I agree with myself from the beginning, from multiple days ago, in that it's unnecessary. However, it's not as bad as internet said, or reviews for that matter. But Helena is deeply annoying and abrasive. Antonio Banderas was great. It's great to see Indy having these in-world old friends. It makes me want to go, not that they're going to be in there, but I actually acquired a whole bunch of Indiana Jones books, like the novels of his little adventure stories. It makes me want to go read those. I had some R.L. Stine Choose Your Own Adventure Indiana Jones books, where you're like his nephew or something, and you're tagging along with him and going on adventures. I read these a lot when I was little. Anyway, so I acquired all these old Indiana Jones books, and it just made me want to read them. So like I said, this movie's unnecessary. I still do like the fourth one better than this one. I think the fourth is more enjoyable to watch, even though it is full of ridiculousness. And there's definitely nothing as bad as the fridge nuking scene in this fifth movie, like at all. Like, some people seriously don't like the time travel. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I loved ancient Italy, and I loved seeing Archimedes, and I loved all of that. And him interacting with her, it's just, it kind of kills the scene that she punches him and knocks him out. And again, like I said, a feather could have knocked him out. And so there's absolutely parts of this movie that I hated, and that was one of them. But there's a lot of it that I liked, like a lot of it, very surprisingly. So again, I want to thank John at Movie Collector and James at In Search of Physical Media for recommending to give it a go. And so, can I say that I see what all the hate is about? No, not 100%, but do I see what some people have major problems with? Yeah. Helena's pretty bad, and she can ruin the movie for you. She didn't ruin it for me, but I mean, you heard me nitpicking for the last many minutes that she's pretty annoying. Let's talk special features. So there's one special feature on here. Well, it's broken into 5 parts. It's like a making of. And through my scientific testing, I have come up with the number of 50%. The special features are 50% fluff and 50% very interesting behind the scenes stuff. So I would say it is worth watching. There is, unfortunately, a lot of everyone being like, oh, it's so good to work with this actor and it's so good to work with this director. And they've even brought Steven Spielberg in to be like, I approve of James Mangold directing this. It's like, good job, everybody. And then Kathleen Kennedy comes on screen a distressing amount of times to celebrate her achievement of Indiana Jones. What else did special features say? Oh, Harrison Ford said he's not going to miss Indiana Jones because he feels like he has finally done all the stuff he needed to do. So I was like, okay, that's great. Also, he's super old, but I think that's a great stance to have. Why would he miss Indiana Jones? I mean, he already got married in the last one, and then they get back together in this one. There's really, I mean, this is it. This is it. Just live happily ever after, dang it. It's just sad that their kid's not there. All right, a few final notes. I like this movie way more than I like Star Wars Episode 8, for what that's worth. The Blu-ray looks great, but the 4K looks way better. And I've asked this question throughout this review, but I'm going to ask it again at the end here. If so much stuff in this movie was filmed for real, on screen, in film, captured, then why does so much of this movie feel so fake and feel so much like a video game? All right, so overall, I think this thing grew on me. I could see myself watching it more. Is it the best Indiana Jones? No. Does it ruin Indiana Jones? No, it doesn't. Did the 4th one ruin Indiana Jones? No, it didn't. I asked my wife her order of the movies. She said 3, 1, 2. And I'm sitting there waiting for her to say number 4. She never did. And I was like, number 4 doesn't exist for you? She's like, no. And I was like, okay, that's fair. She's a lot harsher on movies than I am. For me, my order is 1, 3, 2, 4, 5. So Raiders, Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Crystal Skull, Dial of Destiny, for the preceding reasons. Anyway, if you made it this far, please let me know what you think of this movie and if I was too nitpicky or what. But ultimately, I can say I liked it, I think. Despite all the stuff that bugged me and despite me just almost cringing to death during the tuk-tuk chase. But it doesn't even approach the original 3 movies, especially 1 and 3, my goodness. So anyway, thank you for spending part of your time with me. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you on the next one.